Hello, and welcome back to the second episode of Wood Dragon Alchemy Radio. I'm Jake, your host. I'd like to take a moment of time to truly show my appreciation for you. Without any of you, my words would just be echoes and empty halls. So thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my words. Time out of your day. I am beyond grateful. But before we dive in, let's take a breath. And do a quick recap of last week's episode for those that missed it. In our first episode, the alchemy of renewal, we cracked open the door to what this space truly is. A meeting point between science and spirit, the seen and the unseen, the self and the source. We remembered that renewal isn't about erasing the past. It's about transmuting it, turning what's heavy into fuel, pain into passion. We spoke of awakening codes within the body, right? Through movement, through breath, through awareness, and how energy is neither mystical nor mechanical, but in fact, both. See, it's biological, it's electrical, it's emotional, and most importantly, it is alive. The alchemist within each of us stirred, ready to rise, ready to create, ready to remember who we've always been underneath all of the noise. So as we step into today's conversation, I want you to carry that spark forward. Because renewal was never the end. It was the ignition. It was the beginning. So, speaking of energy, I found it's one of those words, another buzzword, if you will, that kind of just gets thrown around a lot as of recently. And what I mean by that is, like, we talk about good energy, bad energy, low energy, high vibes, low vibes. But what does that really mean? Because if we strip away the spiritual language for a second, energy isn't mystical. It's biological. It is the literal electricity that runs through you, through your nervous system, firing neurons, pumping your blood, moving and talking to your fascia, and animating every single thought and emotion. So, when I talk about energy on this show, I'm talking about that bridge, the one that connects biology to consciousness, the one that turns breath into awareness, and awareness into movement, and movement into vitality. So for me, that understanding came through textbooks, teachers, and experiences. But my truest understanding of it came from feeling it. See, I remember being younger, lost in music, feeling the pulses of the music moving through my body like waves. See, I didn't have the words for it back then. But that was energy in motion. And I noticed how certain environments amplified that pulse. High vibe spaces made me feel alive and even expansive. And on the flip side, low vibe, these ones made me feel dull and even contracted. See, over time, as my awareness deepened, and especially through studying healing touch, which is basically Reiki healing energy, and some other various esoteric arts, I realized that energy isn't something that kind of comes and goes. But in fact, it is always here. See, the only thing that changes is our ability to feel it, our perception of it. So, today, we're diving into the living science of energy, movement, and breath, and the body's hidden codes. How the ancient concepts of chi and prana are actually the same forces we now understand through exercise science and nervous system regulation. Because the truth is, they were never separate to begin with. See, movement, it changed my life more times than I can count. At first, it was skateboarding. See, I was less fortunate growing up, and I didn't have the means to play sports or get involved in any. So, I did what any young, rebellious teenager would do, and I picked up something that was against the norm. And, to be honest, I was also a heavier kid growing up. And it wasn't until I started skateboarding that I dropped some weight. Then I discovered bodybuilding for a brief period of time. And then that opened a doorway to powerlifting. See, I loved it, lived it, I breathed it. To say the least, my ego was engulfed in it. It was my identity. I loved the discipline, the intensity, the challenge. But what I didn't realize at that time was that I was training against my body and not with it. And it wasn't until nearly a decade later that I realized this. Until I discovered human design and started seeking things beyond my formal education. Started asking myself harder questions. A discussion for later. I can say that every rep, every lift, I was stacking compensation patterns, hardening and tightening my fascia. My system resembled something that was strong, but ultimately, it did not feel alive. See, I was inflamed, fatigued, in pain, constantly. And the wild part, at least to me, I didn't even notice how blocked my energy was, because I had no awareness of what flow even felt like. Or, for that matter, what a pain-free existence felt like. It wasn't until I stepped away from the gym, away from the noise and the numbers, that I started to reconnect with my body and what it was actually saying to me. I began studying biomechanics, posture, fascia, and eventually even breath work. And to me, those all led to a revelation. Because breath, as it turns out, is the most direct way to speak to the nervous system. To shift from chaos to calm, from tension to trust. It's what allowed me to undo years of tightness, inflammation, and stored emotional residue that had been sitting in my tissues since childhood. Feelings unfelt coming to the surface to be felt once and for all. I realized the body is a living archive, constantly recording how we move, how we breathe, and how we feel. In the words of Peter Levine, the body remembers. That archive, it lives in the fascia. That connective tissue web that holds us all together. It transmits force and literally encodes our emotional history. Change your posture, you change the way energy moves. Change your breath, and you rewrite the nervous system's story. That's how movement and breath saved me, by teaching me to listen, teaching me to slow down, teaching me to remember to feel again. See, here's the thing about the body. It's not just mechanical in nature. It's musical, at least to me. See, everything works in rhythm, resonance, and relationship. Fascia, this connective tissue that wraps around every muscle, every organ, and every nerve, is not just physical scaffolding. It is the body's communication network, or at least one of them. It transmits mechanical and electrical signals faster than nerves. And it remembers. See, studies now show that fascia adapts to stress, emotion, and movement. That traumatic events in our lives quite literally reshape our brains and our bodies. It encodes tension patterns, both physical and emotional, like grooves in a record. That's why you can release old trauma through movement and breath, because you're literally changing the body's internal geometry. One study, published in Frontiers in Physiology, discussed the idea of the holographic fascia, the notion that each layer of fascia reflects the whole. Subnote: if you're a fan of esoteric arts and have read anything about the Hermetic principles, then you know the law of correspondence is at play. As above, so below. As within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. Meaning, when you change one small area, say through fascicle therapy or mindful movement, you shift the entire system. It ripples throughout the body's network. That's what makes energy work so powerful. It's not just mystical and metaphysical, it's mechanical. You move fascia, you move energy. And thus, you move energy, you move the body and the soul. You change your charge, you change your emotional state, you change your perspective, you change your story, you change your reality. So let's shift a little bit. Let's talk breath. Because if movement is the body's language, then breath is the body's song. Breathing is the one function that lives in both worlds, the autonomic and the conscious. You breathe without thinking about it. But the moment you choose to guide it, you become the alchemist of your own physiology. Slow, intentional breathing has been shown to be better than mindfulness in helping improve mood. I think it's because to consciously slow your breath activates the vagus nerve, your body's direct line to the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest, digest, and recover mode. And when that system turns on, your physiology literally changes. Your heart rate lowers, your blood pressure drops and stabilizes. You shift from survive to restore. See, science calls this downregulation. Mystics call it flow of prana. I, on the other hand, call it conscious alchemy. Because when you control your breath, you control your energy. You become aware of how subtle shifts, the space between inhales and exhales, can literally change your chemistry, your posture, and your emotional state. In fact, your entire physiological existence. See, that's why box breathing, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4 again, or really any structured rhythm of breathing works so well. Right. To be clear though, it's not about the numbers. It's about the feeling. In fact, I could even say that it's about coherence. Teaching your system to move in rhythm again. And when the body is in rhythm, energy flows naturally, even peacefully. Instead of fighting the pressure becomes assisting and stabilizing. You find yourself in a state of repair, healing, peace, and tranquility. Now, let's bridge East and West, Qi, prana, and modern neuroscience. In Chinese traditional medicine, Qi is defined as circulating life force. In yogic philosophy, prana is the breath that gives life. And in modern physiology, what are we discovering? That we are electromagnetic beings. Our cells generate charge. Our hearts radiate measurable electromagnetic fields. Our nervous system pulses electricity through a living web of fascia. Our electromagnetic fields are strongest and largest when we are in a state of heart-brain coherence. This means we have a measurable biofield. Maybe more commonly known as an aura or an auric field. This just means we are in a state of vibrational harmony between the analytical intelligence of the brain and the intuitive intelligence of the heart and the body. When the thought and the feeling, mind and emotion become one unified frequency, it's not just a poetic idea. See, it's a measurable physiological state backed by science. The heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart through electromagnetic, neural, and biochemical pathways. And when that communication becomes synchronized, our entire system enters resonance. In this coherent state, the nervous system then balances out. The breath actively slows. Hormones stabilize. and the body becomes electrically ordered. The mind quiets, intuition sharpens, and the field around the body becomes more structured, allowing us to perceive and create reality from clarity rather than survival. You could say heart-brain coherence is the alchemy of biology and consciousness, where energy becomes emotion, emotion becomes biochemistry, biochemistry becomes bioelectricity, and bioelectricity becomes energy in motion. Full circle. It is the bridge between the personal and the universal, between thinking and knowing. It's when your thoughts start to feel like your truth, and your feelings begin to think. So, real. Chi and prana are just ancient languages describing what science is just now catching up to measure. Energy healing, breathwork, meditation. See, they all influence these biofields in real and observable ways. Studies show changes in mood, heart coherence, even measurable fields around the body during healing practices. That's not magic, that's resonance. The ancients used story and symbol. We just use data and voltage. But inherently, we are speaking and describing the same truth, that life itself is energy in motion. So, if there's one thing I'd love for you to take away from this episode, let it be this. Energy isn't something you need to chase, fix, or even get. It's something you already are and have. Every movement you make, every breath you take, every single moment of awareness, it's all energy expressing itself through you, the vessel. When that expression gets blocked, you feel tight, sick, fatigued, and ill overall. When it flows, you feel alive, aligned, and open and full of vitality. The work here isn't about forcing the energy to move. See, it's already in motion. It's about listening to what it is already saying and telling you. Your fascia tells you where you're holding. Your breath tells you where you're resisting. Your body tells you when it's time to rest or move or even release. And when you start honoring those signals, life becomes lighter. You begin to feel the current again. That subtle pulse that reminds you are electric, alive, and infinitely adaptable. So, as we close, take one slow breath with me. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth like an exaggerated sigh coming from deep down in the belly. Feel that movement, that charge, that stillness. That's your energy. That's your code. And that is your alchemy. So, let me leave you with a teaser for episode 3. What if your emotions were allies instead of obstacles? In the next episode, we explore the biochemistry and bioelectricity of feelings and their spiritual lessons, and how to transmute heavy states in healing. Learn how to let emotions be both the guide and the medicine. So until next time, stay curious, stay embodied, and keep your energy flowing. Peace be with you, my friends. Jake out.